The moment I turned my head, my breath caught in my throat. There she stood, framed by the grand oak doors of the ceremony hall, dripping in layers of gleaming white silk. A dress so bridal it looked like it had been ripped straight out of a royal wedding. My hand tightened around my bouquet so fiercely I heard the crunch of the stems splitting, and the air around me thickened like a storm about to break. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, gasps, sharp whispers, fingers pointing. It wasn't confusion. In their voices, it was horror. I took a step back without meaning to, my heart hammering against my ribcage, my mind flashing with disbelief so blinding it bordered on rage. My mother-in-law, smiling sweetly as if she had just cured world hunger, was strolling down the aisle in white. Not ivory, not beige, white. Her gown clung to her body like she was the one being married today, shimmering under the cathedral lights, a full train dragging behind her like a queen's arrogance. I saw my husband-to-be stiffen at the altar, his jaw clenched so tightly I thought he might crack a tooth. His hands curled into fists at his sides, knuckles blooming white, and still she kept moving forward, waving lightly at guests like a pageant queen parading down her runway. My best friend, maid of honor, muttered a savage curse under her breath, shooting me a look filled with nothing but boiling fury and support. She was halfway to bolting toward my MIL when I grabbed her wrist and shook my head. No, not like this. The air seemed to buzz around me, a rising tide of anger so fierce it left me trembling. This was my day, and here she was, trampling over, it in heels as sharp as knives, trying to slice the joy out of me one smug step at a time. I had spent months, years, dreaming of this moment, sewing it together with threads of hope and love, and she thought she could waltz in and hijack it all like a petty thief in pearls. Security. I needed security. My mouth was dry, my body hot, with rage, but I kept my voice even as I leaned over to the wedding coordinator, who was standing frozen with wide, panicked eyes. "Get her out!" I hissed through my teeth, my smile so sharp it could have cut glass. "Now!" The coordinator blinked once, twice, then nodded as if waking from a nightmare and darted away, whispering frantically into a headset. The music faltered. Slightly. The musicians catching the unease in the room, strings squealing a wrong note that echoed my own heartbeat. Guests shifted in their seats, looking from me to her, unsure whether they were watching a wedding or a battlefield about to explode into flames. And then blessedly, security appeared. Two tall, stone-faced men in dark suits approached her from either side, their steps measured, silent, lethal. She smiled at them as if they were there to offer her a prize, not drag her away like the villain she had chosen to become. I watched, breathless as they flanked her, one reaching out to lightly touch her arm, murmuring something I couldn't hear. Her smile faltered, the first crack in her mask, a tiny tremor of disbelief. She pulled her arm back sharply, the motion sending the train of her dress whipping around like a weapon. People gasped again. She said something. I saw her mouth move, twisting into an ugly, wounded sneer, but the security team was professional, unmoved. They stepped closer, guiding her firmly, inevitably toward the exit. Her eyes found mine across the aisle, burning with humiliation and a furious betrayal that was almost laughable. "How dare I?" Her gaze seemed to scream. "How dare I not let her steal my moment?" I stared back, my spine straight and my head high, daring her to make a bigger scene, daring her to humiliate herself further. She floundered under the weight of her own embarrassment, thrashing like a fish caught on a hook, but she was no match for the quiet, solid strength of the guards. Slowly, like a venomous creature being removed from a sacred place, she was escorted down the aisle she had so arrogantly tried to claim, her footsteps stumbling, her cheeks flushing deeper with every second. The room buzzed, 1,000 unspoken thoughts colliding in the thick, tense air. Some guests turned away, unable to watch the wreckage. Others stared openly, their faces twisted in horror, fascination, disgust. My fiancé met my gaze then, something raw and furious flickering in his eyes, and he shook his head once, almost imperceptibly. A promise, a vow. We are together in this. She will not ruin us. I lifted my chin, summoned every ounce of steel within me, and stepped forward toward the altar as the doors slammed shut behind her with a final thunderous boom. The slam of the doors echoed like a drumbeat of triumph, rattling through the ceremony hall, vibrating deep into my bones. For one suspended moment, the world seemed frozen, every eye fixed on me, the bride who had just ordered her mother-in-law, dragged out in disgrace. A breathless silence hung over the crowd, thick and heavy like the air before a summer storm. And in that silence, I straightened my shoulders and took my first determined step down the aisle. Every heartbeat was a hammer, pounding in my ears. I could still feel the aftershock of her presence clinging to the edges of the room like smoke after a fire. But with every step I took, that poison lifted, retreating, receding, burning away in the glow of everything she could not touch. My dress swished softly against the carpet, the delicate lace trailing behind me like a whisper of defiance. I saw the pity in some faces, the admiration in others, but I didn't care about any of them. I had one focus now, one anchor holding me steady against the chaos. Him. My fiancé's eyes never left mine. Not once. His gaze was a lifeline stretched. Between us, taut and unbreakable, pulling me closer with a force stronger than anything that had tried to sabotage this day. There was so much in his eyes, pride, sorrow, rage barely leashed beneath the surface. But above all, there was love, fierce and raw and unwavering. It was enough to steady the trembling in my hands, enough to light the fire in my gut even hotter. When I reached him, he reached out without hesitation, his fingers closing around mine with a grip so firm it bordered on desperate. His hand was warm, steady, real, grounding me when the whole world still felt like it was spinning out from under my feet. I saw his lips part, and though he didn't speak, I knew what he was saying in that silent moment. I'm sorry. I'm furious. I'm yours. The officiant cleared his throat, visibly rattled but soldiering on, and the guests slowly settled back into their seats, the tension crackling through the room like static. It wasn't the pristine fairy tale wedding I had once envisioned. No, this was something messier, fiercer, stained by betrayal but not destroyed by it. This was a wedding forged in fire, stronger than anything my Emile could have imagined when she slipped into her stolen white dress that morning, thinking she could outshine me. As the ceremony began, I barely heard the words being spoken. My mind kept drifting back, playing the scene over and over, seeing the satisfied smirk she had worn when she first appeared, the utter disbelief when security had dared lay a hand on her, the pathetic way she had tried to argue, to plead, to bargain her way into staying. I wondered if she even understood the depth of her own humiliation, if she grasped that no one pitied her, that she had made herself into a public spectacle, a cautionary tale whispered behind manicured hands for years to come. She had wanted to steal the spotlight, and in a way, she had succeeded, but not the way she had dreamed. There would be no adoration, no applause. Only scorn, only laughter, only disgust thick in the mouths of the guests who had witnessed her downfall. Her name would be spat out like a curse in retellings, a warning to every other desperate woman who thought she could sabotage her son's happiness to feed her own gaping hunger for attention. I felt the anger in me sharpen, not blinding now, but clean and focused, a blade I could wield rather than a wildfire that could consume me. I would not let her stain this day any further. I squeezed my fiancé's hand tighter, anchoring myself to the promises we were making, the future we were fighting for, a future where her venom would never again dictate the course of our lives. As the officiant's voice rose, asking us to declare our vows. I spoke with a voice that was steady and clear, a voice that did not tremble even after all that had transpired. I saw tears prick the corners of his eyes as I spoke, and in that moment, I knew she hadn't won. She hadn't even come close. She had tried to poison this day, to make it about her. But all she had done was reveal herself for what she truly was. And in doing so, she had given us a gift far greater than her approval. She had freed us from any illusion that she would ever change. He spoke his vows next, his voice thick with emotion but strong, each word a blow hammering the final nails into the coffin of her influence. We were carving out our own family, brick by brick, shielded not by her blessing, but by our mutual resolve to never let her, or anyone like her, control us again. When it came time for the rings, his hands shook slightly, but it wasn't fear, it was a trembling built from the gravity of the moment, the weight of everything we had survived just to stand here, together, in front of everyone who mattered. His thumb brushed against my knuckle as he slid the ring onto my finger, a whisper of contact that said, without words, "We made it. We're unbreakable now." The officiant announced us husband and wife, and as we kissed, a roar of applause broke out, louder, fiercer than I had expected, as if the guests were not just celebrating our marriage, but also the battle we had won together. I closed my eyes against the noise, sinking into the kiss, feeling the fire and the fury and the fierce aching love between us ignite into something so bright, it burned away every shadow she had tried to cast. We pulled apart breathless, triumphant, alive in a way I had never felt before. The reception hall was a living thing by the time we arrived, buzzing with raw energy, a fierce undercurrent running through every conversation, every lifted glass, every pointed glance toward the empty seat where she should have been. Laughter rang out louder than it should have, every toast a little sharper, every smile tinged with the electric thrill of witnessing a scandal firsthand. It was like we had survived a battle and now the survivors were celebrating, half in relief, half in disbelief. I stepped into the room with my husband's hand in mine, and for the first time that day, I truly felt the enormity of what we had done. Not just getting married, but standing up, planting a flag in the scorched earth she had tried to salt, and claiming it as ours. Heads turned when we entered, and a wave of applause rolled over us, a real visceral roar that hit me like a tidal wave. I could see it in their faces. They weren't just clapping for the wedding. They were clapping for me. I barely had time to blink before my closest friends swarmed me, their faces alive with fierce pride and savage glee. My maid of honor threw her arms around me so hard she nearly knocked me off balance, her voice a low, vicious whisper in my ear. "You looked like a queen sending her traitor to the dungeons," she said, laughing breathlessly, and a wild, hot joy bloomed inside my chest. The band struck up a riotous tune, and the reception surged forward with reckless abandon, as if the earlier ugliness had only sharpened everyone's hunger for celebration. People danced harder, laughed louder, drank more freely. It wasn't a polite, staid gathering anymore. It was a party, an act of defiance, a living testament to the fact that love had won today. But even through the dizzy swirl of it all, there was a shadow lurking at the edges of my mind. I knew she wasn't done. She would never be done. Somewhere out there, she was stewing, her bitterness curdling into something black and dangerous. My phone buzzed once, twice, buzzing like a trapped insect in my clutch purse, but I didn't have to. Look to know who it was. I refused to give her even 1 second more of my attention. Later, much later, after the first dance, after the speeches that made me laugh until my sides hurt and cry until my mascara blurred, after the cake was cut and the plates cleared, after the champagne had left everyone giddy and unguarded, I found myself standing alone on the terrace, staring out into the cool night. The stars burned cold and bright overhead, so different from the firestorm that had raged through my day. I heard the sliding glass door creak open behind me, and a moment later, I felt his arms wrap around my waist, pulling me back against the solid heat of his chest. I leaned into him without thinking, breathing in the scent of him, the safety, the promise. He rested his chin on my shoulder, his voice low and rough in my ear. "I'm sorry she tried to ruin it," he said, the words cracking with something old and heavy, a guilt he shouldn't have had to carry but did anyway. "I'm sorry I didn't see it coming sooner." I shook my head, turning slightly so I could see the lines of strain around his mouth, the haunted look still lingering in his eyes. "It wasn't your job to stop her," I said fiercely. "It was ours, to stand up to her. And we did. Together." He kissed my temple, a lingering, aching kiss that made my throat tighten with emotion I couldn't name. "You were incredible," he murmured. "You're incredible." I swallowed hard, feeling 1,000 unshed tears gathering behind my eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer, overwhelming weight of the day, the love, the fight, the victory. I closed my eyes and pressed my forehead against his. "She's not going to break us," I whispered. "No matter what she does next, she can't touch us." A shiver ran through him, not from fear, but from the force of belief settling into his bones. He nodded slowly, tightening his arms around me like he could fuse us together, make us unbreakable. "No," he said, voice fierce. "She can't." We stood there like that for a long time, the sounds of the party spilling out behind us, laughter and music, and the clink of glasses floating on the breeze. Every so often, I caught a glimpse of people inside, smiling, dancing, living, and I realized something bone-deep and irrevocable. This was our life now. Our life. Messy, imperfect, fiercely defended. And it was beautiful. I felt the future, stretching out in front of us like a wide-open road, rough and winding but ours to claim. I felt the battles we would fight, the walls we would build, the home we would carve out from the wreckage she left behind. And I felt something else, too. Something like triumph, something like peace, blooming deep in my chest where before there had only been rage. Inside, someone called our names, dragging us back into the light, into the laughter, into the life we were building together one choice at a time. We walked back into the reception hand in hand, our steps slow but steady, the heat of the night clinging to our skin like a second layer, a silent testament to the fire we had walked through. Eyes followed us, but not with pity, not with that hollow sympathy people offer like a wound dressing. They watched with awe, with a kind of electric admiration I could feel prickling against my skin like static. We were the storm they had witnessed, and we had come out gleaming, undefeated. The DJ switched songs the moment he saw us, the beat pulsing through the floor, through the walls, through my very bones. We didn't need an announcement. Everyone understood. It was time. My husband grabbed me by the waist, spinning me into the center of the dance floor, and the crowd parted like a sea before us. All the earlier chaos, all the fury and humiliation, burned away under the feverish joy that wrapped itself around us now, thick and golden and real. He lifted me into a dizzying spin, and I laughed, a wild, unchained sound that ripped from my chest without apology. I laughed like someone who had survived the burning of a kingdom and was now dancing among the ruins, unbroken. Around us, friends clapped and stomped and cheered, a reckless, thundering beat that shook the chandeliers overhead and made the candles shudder in their glass holders. For a moment, it felt like the whole universe had shrunk down to just the two of us. The press of his chest against mine, the roughness of his breath as he laughed into my hair, the heat of his hands anchoring me to this new life we were forging with every step, every breath, every heartbeat. We were a rebellion, a revolution wrapped in wedding finery, and no one, not even her, could stop the momentum we had built. The night blurred after that into a furious, beautiful tapestry of sensations. The sugary sharpness of champagne on my tongue, the rough scrape of his stubble against my cheek as he kissed me again and again, the way my dress clung to my legs as we danced harder, faster, freer. Somewhere in the haze, someone gave a speech so blisteringly savage about how families should support, not sabotage, that the room roared with laughter and applause, the message unmistakable. Somewhere, probably seething in a gilded cage of her own making, she would hear about it. She would hear how her attempt to overshadow me had only made me burn brighter. She would hear how people laughed about her behind her back, how they pitied her desperation, how they raised their glasses not to her petty spectacle, but to the unbreakable force that she had accidentally helped forge between me and my husband. Wondered if she would ever understand the magnitude of her failure, if she would ever look back and realize that in trying to steal the spotlight, she had exposed herself completely. Probably not. People like her rarely learned. They twisted the world around them until they were the only victims left in the story. But I had stopped caring. Somewhere between the ceremony and now, somewhere between the slammed door and the shouted toasts, I had shed her power like a second skin, leaving it behind on the floor like a dress I would never wear again. She had no claim on me, no roots left in my heart. She could rage and rant and plot all she wanted from the sidelines, but she would always be outside looking in, shut out of the warmth, the love, the fierce, blazing life we had built without her. As the final song played and the guests began to peel away, drunk on champagne and rebellion, we slipped away into the night, shoes dangling from our hands, the hem of my dress dark with grass stains and joy. We didn't say much as we walked under the stars, our steps slow, savoring the heavy silence, the lingering weight of a day that had demanded everything and given even more back. He stopped suddenly, tugging me close, his hands sliding into my hair, and he kissed me so deeply, so thoroughly, that I forgot how to breathe. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine, and he whispered into the space between us, fierce and low, "No one gets to take anything from us. Not now. Not ever." I smiled, a slow, aching smile, and kissed him again, tasting the future on his lips. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be fights, there would be tears, there would be scars, but it would be ours. All of it. Every brutal, beautiful moment, and she would have no place in it. Not anymore. Not ever again. We turned away from the echoes of the night, from the flickering lights of the hall, and stepped forward together into the darkness, unafraid, unstoppable, free.